I really appreciate it. Oh, can you hear me now? Is that okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, I just want to tell you that this is an interactive experience, please, okay? I want you guys to interact with me. You can cut in on what I'm saying. You can ask me any question at any time. So be part of the experience, okay? Because, you know, why not? We're here to have fun. This is my second time here at the Rabbit Box. I really like it. Yeah. I love Seattle, of course. I used to come here and see my dear friend Victor Hayden, who you will hear about. And I'm going to read from this book a lot. But, you know, please, it's not precious. So just cut in. I mean it. And we're going to sing together. If you want to get up and dance, we can do that. I just want to be myself. I don't want you to be yourself. I want you to be your best self, your weirdest, wildest self tonight, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys all know what a groupie is?
Yes.
What is a groupie? Anyone want to tell me? Come on!
Fun.
Fun? That's great.
Someone who takes care of the band.
Someone who takes care of the band's very good answer.
Someone who loves music.
What?
You want to meet the band.
I want to meet them. Is that what it? I wanted to meet the people who made me feel like so warm inside and very, very hot down here.
Someone who fucks the band.
Wow, that's pretty rude. That's pretty rude. That's coming right out with it. Gee. There's a lot more to it than that. Okay. Okay, well, for me, people want to know how in the world all this started, you know, but for me, it's obvious who started this world for me. And I was only 8 years old when I discovered this guy. It's this kid.
When I walk through that door, baby, it'll be more like you gonna make me so. If you don't treat me right, don't you ever kiss me once, kiss me twice. Leave me nice.
So, when you discover Elvis at 8 years old, something changes your DNA. And I just wanted to know, that was my favorite song. It's on the flip side of Jailhouse Rock. And it's Treat Me Nice. And I played it endlessly. You know, my Disney records didn't exist anymore. I wanted to hear that. And that voice, and we got to see him on Ed Sullivan, and they cut him to his waist because he was way too hot. And I said, Mom, where are his legs? And she was like, I was way too young to know why that happened. But I wanted to know what he meant by treating him nice. So that started very, very young. And I still love Elvis to this day. And I always will. He started my journey. And many people also carried me through this incredible journey. I'm going to read about these people. And the next person, though, who I'm going to read a little bit about it first, who just completely blew my head off. I was only 13, and I'm going to read about it. So I'm going to read about various things through this book, and whatever it triggers in me, I'm just going to talk about it. So, like I said, please interrupt me. Please just, ask your questions and hang out. Maybe you can come up here and sit on my lap. That would be all right. Okay. Although I bought Bobby V records and wanted to put my head on Paul Anka's shoulder, I counted the minutes and seconds until, who knows what I'm going to say? Come on, somebody has to know. Dion DiMucci. Suave and greasy, wearing a shiny sharkskin suit, came gliding into my living room via American Bandstand, admitted by Uncle Dick Clark. May 9th, 1962. Okay, that's how long I've been doing this. Dion! Oh, help! I'm so excited. I think I'll just die. I was running around the house, choking, crying, and yelling and screaming, wow, 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 cute, cute, cute. You would have just died how he said, dum diddle dum diddle dum diddle. I was rolling over inside. I was crying. I started so early with this stuff. I would sit cross-legged on the floor in front of our big blonde TV, dribbling tears of teen love into my Pop-Tart while my mom looked on, shaking her head in amazement the way moms do. I had a shrine to Dion on my dresser, and I wore a locket around my neck with his picture clipped from 16 magazine and swooned over his slippery, sexy cool. It broke my heart when he married Runaround Sue. I guess he was just pissed off at her when he wrote Runaround Sue. It turns out he actually did write that. This is a thrilling thing that just happened. I had Dion on my podcast all these years later. And I was just so beside myself. And he did tell me that they were having a little tiff, and he wrote that song about her. So she will forever be Runaround Sue. They've been together 62 years. Or I still might try to jump on it. Oh, it was so thrilling. I was literally walking on air for 3 days after that podcast. He still sings. I still go see him play. I get on a plane and go to New Jersey. I'll go anywhere where Dion sings. So he's still doing it. And, I was 13 then, so you can imagine what happened the following year, because I was 14 when the biggest thing that ever happened to music happened to me. And let's sing, okay? Let's sing all together. All together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I tell you something. I think you'll understand. When I say that something, I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. How irresistible was that? Who could resist that? Especially at 14. So I have quite a long passages about the Beatles. And if you, like I said, if you want to interrupt me and just tell me your Beatles story, that's fine with me too. All right. February 10th. Oh no, I'm going to start up here. Okay. I still wore school colors, got B's, and was trying to figure out what kind of boy was right for me when I got a fatal dose of Beatlemania. The Fab Four entered the atmosphere at exactly the right wide-open moment for Pam Miller of Reseda, California, to become a complete and total blithering, idiotic Beatlemaniac. Paul McCartney personified the perfect man. And once again, the dumbbells at Cleveland High, who didn't ask me to dance at sock hops, faded into oblivion. February 10th. Hello, diary. Paul, you are gear. Really fab. Say, chum, why are you so marvelous, love? The most bloomin' idiot on earth is me, 'cause I'm wild over you, chap. It's so embarrassing. Even now, my 14-year-old self. Oh. The country of England, which hadn't existed for me until now, became Mecca. And every day, I sent Paul a retardedly corny poem. Sorry, it's a bad word now. I wrote this many years ago. Written on an aerogram and sealed with a kiss. March 2nd. It's 2:21 a.m. at Paul's house. He's sleeping. I'm glad. I wish I could see him sleeping. I really do. I wish I could be with him sleeping. Just kidding, just kidding. I was only 14, remember? I hope he read my poem before he closed his beautiful brown eyes. I really believed that he was getting these aerograms. Most of you are probably too young to even know what that is. It was when you could mail things pretty reasonably. It was a blue thing you could fold and mail it very, very cheaply. And I believed he was getting them and reading them every single night. I mean, spent all my allowance on it. Even though I dreamed about what was between Paul's perfect milky white thighs, I had not yet conjured up dimensions. I collected Beatle bubblegum cards, and one of them was a shot of Paul playing his bass, sitting on a bed in a hotel with his legs apart. You could actually see the shape of his balls being crushed by the tightness of his trousers. And I carried that card around with me in a little gold box with cotton covering it like it was a precious jewel. I peeked into it reverently once a day, lifting the cotton gently, holding my breath, as I stared between his legs at the eighth wonder of the world. You know, that guy who said that rude thing? He wasn't that far off. You know, but that way back then, I couldn't even conjure up dimensions, but I still thought that way. It happens. When did it happen? When were you girls, when did that start happening to you? What age did you start feeling that thing? 9. Wow. Okay.
Like around the time I
Yes.
started to have.
Anybody else want to answer that
The
question?
first time I saw Prince.
Oh, that makes sense to me. He was a favorite of mine too. Still is. Okay. Every other day on the Beatles station, KRLA, Dave Hull, the hullabalooer, would announce whether or not Paul was engaged to marry the creepy, freckle-faced bow wow, Jane Asher. It drove me crazy, it's all I thought about. I stare at his face upon my wall. I know I love him best of all. His gorgeous eyes just knock me down. I swear I think he should wear a crown. The way he moves when he sings a song, let's hope he doesn't marry before long. I had lost some good friends who were growing up, going steady and planning their lives after high school. They left me behind with my Beatles lunchbox, my bobbing head dolls, practicing my Liverpudlian accent. And guess what? They're probably still in Reseda with a gaggle of goony kids to kowtow to, being forced to listen to Motley Crue by their very own burgeoning teenagers, and it serves them right. We gravitated to one another, the Beatles sweeties, and hung around in packs of 4, one for each Beatle. Kathy Willis was my George friend. Her dad knew somebody who worked at the Hollywood Bowl and was going to get us good seats for the Beatles concert on August 23rd. I don't know if any of you people have dates in your mind that you never ever forget. It's a day and you go, oh, August 23rd, might as well go to the circus. That day to me is like Christmas. Every August 23rd I go, here it is again, August 23rd. When I saw the Beatles. Sorry, I have to have a little taste of this vodka, excuse me.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. We hung them on our bedroom walls, and I paid homage to my ticket nightly. I put it in a little frame. My entire room was covered with Beatle paraphernalia. I wrote with a Beatle pen, slept on a Beatle pillowcase, and breathed with Beatle lungs. Stevie was my Ringo friend, and no one understood the poor thing. Oh, Pammy, I feel like the world is caving in on me. Everyone's trying to take me Ringo away from me. Help me, Pam. Oh, please help me, help me. I need encouragement so bad. I've got to meet Ringo or my whole life will be completely empty. Oh, I'm suffering so. He's my love and I love him. Oh, God, please don't let me Ringo be taken away from me. I don't think there's been anything like Beatlemania since then. Do you guys? There really has not. It was such a thrilling thing to live through and experience. There's a lot more about the Beatles. My dad bought me a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and I made up a lot of adorable little plays, acting out all the different parts in which Jane Asher does many grisly, horrifying deaths. The Pam Miller character was always around to pick up Paul's pieces. To his nibs, I sang a different tune. Dear Paul, your fans will always love you. Personally, I will never stop. And you know what? I haven't. Since hearing about your engagement to Jane Asher, I'll have to love you in another way all of my own. Paul McCartney of Beatle fame has chosen another to share his name. Many girls will cry each night, saying, this marriage just cannot be right. Even though all his fans are blue, it's to her he whispers, I love you. Sure, there are people who will say he's wrong, but let's just hope his love is strong. If he listens to us, where will he be? He'll be without children to bounce on his knee. He'll miss out on the purpose of life, to live, to love, have a child and a wife. If we really loved him, how happy we'd be that he's found such happiness and ecstasy. She is his chosen flame, to share with him the McCartney name. It's enough to make you throw up. I was 14 though. That's not bad poetry. 14.
Not bad at all.
I developed a series of rituals that I had to perform every night or I would never meet Paul. Number 1, write I love Paul at the top of my diary in my most perfect handwriting. Number 2, listen to a Beatles record before sleep. No other sound could assault my eardrums after the sacred sound. If the dog barked, I had to climb out of bed and start over. Number 3, put a sweet tart under my tongue as my head hit the pillow and let it dissolve as I pictured myself in his arms. Sweet tarts were a brand new thing. Back then that was a big deal. And I had pimples, like many teenagers did. And I was told sugar was bad for people with pimples, which was a big lie. And it said that there was only dextrose in these candies. And of course, that's sugar. It's another word for sugar. They've been messing with us for a very long time. In addition to these rituals, I had to write his name down every time I farted. That's true. It's true. And I carried that list around with me until it reached well into the thousands before I became embarrassed and hid it under the clothes hamper. I still have the list. I have all my Beatles stuff. And, you know, I guess a lot of people save their Beatles stuff, but mine is very special. Do you think anyone ever did a fart list to meet Paul? And you know what? I did meet Paul. It took 50 years, but I met him.
Did you tell him about the list?
No! In fact, he was with Heather at the time. You guys remember Heather? That short period, he was with that girl that was right for him. None of them are. None of them are. But I did meet him. It was after a show. My friend Brian Ray plays with him now. So I got to go to a show and go to a party after. And some stranger, Paul was across the table from me. And I was just like, oh, I was just 14 again. And some stranger came up and said, have you met Paul? And I said, no. And he said, oh, come on. And it was just so fast, I couldn't run away or anything. So he presented me to Paul, and I had brought a hardback with the band, and I handed it to him. And with those eyebrows and his eyebrows up like this, he thumbed through it, and he said, we haven't met, have we? And I said, no, unfortunately. And he turned to Heather and said, see, dear, we haven't met. He was notorious, apparently, but I missed out on that. I was too young. I was too young for any of that back then. May 8th, 1964. Oops. Tells me when my phone is. Come on. Okay. I love Paul. See, I had to write it every time. I did. I'm in love with his body and everything that's on it. I love you, I love you, I love you, my precious Polly Wally Paw Paw. Oh, my BB, my own lover. May 10th, I love Paul. Sad news, he's with Pigface in the Virgin Islands. And I thought they had broken up. That's not all. Ringo is with Maureen Cox and George is with Patty Boyd. No parental consent and no chaperones. I thought that was a big deal at 14. June 24th, I love Paul. He is the man I love. If he got the chance, I know he would love me. I just know it. I love every muscle and fiber and ligament in his thigh. I know that sounds odd, but that's the way I feel. I was obsessed with Paul's thighs. He had some mighty beautiful long thighs. And he still does, right? You guys, any Paul fans here? He goes on Instagram now and just talks to you like this. Paul. It's amazing, right? It's so cool. He was under a bridge in Tulsa the other day. That was incredible. Just, ooh, Paul, I still have the same eyebrows. It's amazing. It's really incredible. Okay. Right around this time, I was in high school. It was post-Beatles. I wish I could read you the whole 370 pages of the book, but I cannot. So I have to skip. And a fellow came to my school. I had a steady boyfriend named Bobby Martini, and he didn't know he was about to be pushed aside by the likes of Captain Beefheart. I mean, this was a really, I was only 16 when I met Don Van Vliet, and that was a life changer. I mean, think about it. What would have happened to you if you'd met Captain Beefheart? You probably did, Dave, at 16. I mean, it's a life changer. So, this guy, Victor Hayden, came to my school.
Yeah.
Victor Hayden was always running from the vice principal because his hair was way too long, and something about him inspired me. I still don't know what attracted Victor to me. It must have been his barely budding anti-establishment ideas, which manifested when I gradually stopped teasing my hair into a coiffed flip like Cindy Bowling. Do you guys remember the girls in your school that were popular and you weren't? I remember all their names. Cindy Bowling. That was her name. Victor began to hang around me during nutrition, blowing my innocent mind with radical departures from the truth as I knew it. He thought it was absurd to try to fit into a society that was chasing its tail and going nowhere fast. This was big news to me, folks, and I pondered it profusely. He told me about this folk singer. Do we know his name? Come on.
Dylan.
Yes! And he's lent me a couple of his albums. I soon found out that the answer to any and all questions was blowing in the wind.
Once upon a time, you dressed so fine, do the bubble time in your prime. Didn't you? Never people call, say beware, that all your minds fall, you thought they were all. Can you? You used to
Laugh about everybody that was hanging out. Woo! Yeah, Bob. People ask me to this day all the time, what was your favorite song of all time? It's that one. Woo! That's why I didn't play Blowing in the Wind, because that song, forget it, changed everything. I hope there's some Dylan fans here.
Yes.
Who agree with me. Okay. Victor also turned me on to the Rolling Stones. And since I thought Victor Hayden was blazing a new trail, I followed in his giant footsteps to the local record store to check out Mick Jagger. Ow! This incident coincided with my brand new pubescent longings for something hot and my desire to be considered a daring young thinker of dramatic new thoughts. My Beatle friends were aghast. They thought Victor was a holier-than-thou snot who was out to erase them from the planet. And they believed I had forsaken Paul for the grotesque, filthy, big-lipped animal, Mick Jagger.
Hi, Miss Pamela.
Hi, Garney. Garney's going to read a letter that I got from these girls when they thought I had forsaken Paul for that animal.
Should I speak into this mic or should I just
Yes.
project?
No, here.
Testing. Dear Pam,
I suppose you are wondering why Linda, Stevie, and I acted the way we did after school yesterday. The main reason is because you are a phony person. You had better watch out before you become completely friendless. Why on earth could you even start to like Mick over Paul? You think you think you are an individualist, but an individualist isn't one who wears strange clothes. Pam, you try to be strange, but you aren't. You are just being a loser. Nobody likes you when you act the way you do. Personally, I'd much rather go around with my crowd than with moody Victor who chops everybody down just because he knows he isn't popular. Just remember, you won't be a teenager all your life, and when you get into your 20s, you will regret your actions.
Nope.
Never did.
I thought I knew you real well. You were always so enthusiastic about the Beatles, and now you're a Rolling Stones fan. The Doom. I don't see how you could pick them over the Beatles unless you were being a phony all the time. The Stones are dirty and sloppy, and they repugnate me. Rock and roll. When I think back to how you used to sign your name, Paul and Pam, I can't believe you're the same. Pause for a page turn.
What year was that?
64, 65, 65.
I can't believe you're the same girl. I don't hate you, but frankly, I don't like you. Kathy and Stevie.
Thank you, honey. Thank you, Garney. That was Garnet. My darling Garnet.
K and S. I didn't even put their full names, I was so upset. K and S. I have very sensible answers to your ridiculous questions. Paul and Mick cannot be compared. They are two opposite types with two opposite types of love connected to them. I have not taken the Stones over the Beatles. I have just let them become a part of my life too. Is that so wrong? The Beatles can never be topped, but the Stones will never be topped either. Oh, you just don't understand. It makes me literally sick how you think you know so much about the sloppy Stones that you feel you can call them dirty. Just because they don't all wear the same suits and comb their hair the same way, then you know nothing of Victor. And if you did, your opinion would change. Well, maybe not. He doesn't get along very well with people whose minds are rather narrow. He can also spot a phony.
Yeah.
And if I were a phony, he would have told me a long time ago. Really funny, I think. I don't think I'm one bit strange either. I go to my closet and I pick out things that I think look good together. I don't stand there and say, oh, I think I look strange today. I do what I like and say what I like, and I don't hate you either. I don't hate anybody. Pamela. And I'll tell you what happened. I was no longer Pam. I want to get this right. Don Van Vliet changed my name to Pamela. When I met him, he looked me up and down and he said, you're a gas. I wish there were more people like you, Pamela. I've been christened. I'm a new person. It was amazing.
It's like you're back to the new fart book.
What?
Nothing.
Something about a fart. I heard that.
He looked you up and down and called you gas.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
Well, that's very true. I left Pam in the dust and became Pamela, leaving all the Beatles sweeties gasping for breath. The girls had no idea to what extent I had glommed onto the dirty, sloppy Stones. My brief sexual encounters with my boyfriend Bob had opened up vistas of turgid, twisting thoughts, and Mick Jagger personified a penis. I took my new records and my glossy, steaming photographs into my rock and roll room, where I scaled new heights of tortuous teen abandon, wriggling in my seat with newfound throbbing ecstasy. The second song on the second side of the second album changed my life. The first time I heard it, I had an orgasmic experience. Let me put it in, it feels all right. Anyone familiar with that song, It's All Right?
Yeah.
It is a very unforgotten Stones song that made me have my very first experience. I would like to hear some of your first experiences. It's always very, very interesting. I was all alone with a record, anything can happen.
You said this was 1964?
65. We're into 65.
Okay, well, I still think you're my mom.
This guy thinks I'm his mother. Okay. I would sit by my hi-fi playing that line over and over until I reached my pulsation point. Let me put it in, let me put it in, let me put it in. When I played it for my George friend Kathy, she said, let me put what in where? She really didn't know. I was way ahead of that game. Okay. The Stones were going to come to town, and in those days, the DJs would give you hints about where you might bump into them. And this was in the days there was nobody doing what I was doing. I wanted to meet these people. The word G word was years away, but Victor too wanted to meet the Stones. We were so moved by their music. I think Victor in a different way than I was, don't you think, Dave? The month of waiting for the Stones' arrival increased my wanton desire to feel those gigantic lips on mine. I started writing porno things in my diary for the first time. Someday I will touch and feel him. I know it. Mick, my dear, dear penis! Capital letters. Ugh. I gracefully created in pink and red oil colors my concept of what his balls might look like. I turned it into Mr. Gifford as a modern art project in clay. I don't have the painting anymore. I can't imagine what happened to it. It might come up for auction someday. But I have the drawing that I based it on, and it's some pretty decent balls, pretty imaginative. Well, not that far off either. But there's also this little line of sperms going. It was a modern art project. It was, and I found out later, of course, Mr. Gifford was gay, and he probably knew exactly what that drawing was. Vic and I hurtled ourselves to RCA, hoping they might be there recording, and incredibly they were. We waited around panting until they came out, and as if I were in a zomboid trance, I followed Mick into the parking lot. As he got into the rented station wagon, he turned and asked me to help him out of the parking space. I was so enthralled that he'd spoken to me, and just being in his presence turned me into such a gibbering, slack-jawed dildo brain that I had him bumping into 2 different cars before he made it out of there. I'm afraid I didn't make a very good first impression. Dazed, I walked right into Keith as he ambled to the car. Even in my bewildered condition, I swore he gave me a sexy look. I wrote in my diary, Keith looked me over, sexy. And what did he see? A skinny, shivering wreck of a teenager, truly petrified during her daring rock and roll deed. They asked us for directions to the Ambassador Hotel, but Victor just stood there gaping. Mick leaned out the window and said, no, I'm serious. I wish I could do a British accent, I can't. So we escorted them up Wilshire Boulevard with satisfaction blaring on the radio as I gazed in the rearview mirror at my steaming photograph in the steaming flesh. Woo! You guys are, I'm 77. I doubt there's anyone here near my age, but when you first hear a song like that, and when you're that young, it's life-changing stuff.
Greatest.
And the next day, Don Van Vliet had met the Stones in England, and he invited Vic and I to come hang out with the Stones. Now this was some crazy thing for a high school person. And the next day, we told people in school we met the Stones. No one believed it. No one was out there doing that. No one believed for 1 minute. But it was so amazing to see Keith Richards in the flesh. You know, I mean, it's hard to explain how amazing it fucking was. Oh, also, so what happened was Don Van Vliet only knew Bill and Charlie. And I didn't care about them. God bless them. So we sat and listened. You know, I learned about blues and jazz that night. We sat with those two going, yeah. Victor nodded his head in a certain way, and I went, okay. I better do that too. But I wanted to meet Mick. And I think I wrote a little passage about it. I'm going to read it to you. I may just have to tell it to you, darn it. What happened was I knocked on his door, and I got up the courage to do that. It was very difficult. I was 16 at this point. Knocked on his door, and he opened the door stark naked. And I was 16, and I can still see, because somehow the light through the window was just coming down like a shaft on his shaft. It was like, and I did not go running into his naked arms. I ran out into the wilderness of the Ambassador Hotel grounds. Very embarrassing. And years later, of course, I got with Mick, as most of you who read this know, and I never told him about that. You think I should have? Yeah. I don't know. And I that wasn't enough. Later I peeked into his window, around the back, and was looking in the window, and this impenetrable whiteness was there, and I looked up. And he had put some underwear on, and I'd been staring into his underwear. And he said to me, you know, I wrote all this in my diary, so I knew. He said, "Go home now, pretty little girl." He was a good guy. He is a good guy. Okay. So after meeting Don Van Vliet at the Renaissance, not the Renaissance Fair, that's not yet, at the Teenage Fair at the Hollywood Palladium, I saw Hollywood. I was in the Valley, and I thought, wow, this is where I want to be. I want to be in Hollywood. So I started going to the Strip and looking for, you know, local bands, because I was an obsessed music person from the beginning with Elvis and Dion. And the Byrds were the first band that I got involved with, and the first band I met. And I was standing with a bunch of girls on the Strip, looking at this backstage door at Ciro's. It hadn't even changed the name yet. It was still Ciro's, like where Sammy Davis Jr. had played and everything. And I was looking at these backstage doors, and I said, I bet that's the backstage. And the girls I was with said, so? I said, well, okay. I'm gonna knock on the door. And I did. I knocked on the door. This was a brave move for a 16-year-old girl from the Valley. The door opened. Jim McGuinn handed me a joint and said, come on in. And that's how I met the Byrds. And they were my first band, after Beefheart, that I got to meet for real. And I was in love right away with the bass player, Chris Hillman. My first 3 actual lovers, bass players. Any bass players here? Okay. I fell in love with Chris Hillman.
But he's married.
Well, no married men. No, not for me. That was never my thing. I fell in love with Chris Hillman the instant I laid eyes on him. He was the bass player, very introspective, deep, and contemplative. No matter how many questions I could come up with to plague him, he only answered with 1 or 2 words. I knew the world he gazed out on with his light blue eyes was fraught with much deeper meaning than the one I was forced to look at from within the confines of my 16-year-old brain. I latched onto the birds as I had the Beatles, only this time they were local and I could obsess in person. Great music being made back then. I know there's great music now, but this was the forefront of rock and roll, and I'm so grateful I was able to see so much of it in person. So much of it. Yay, me! April 6th, 1966. Christmas messed up a song because of me, I know it. He was watching me very avidly, and he made a wrong chord. This here is one of maybe the most embarrassing thing in this entire book, but I'm going to read it to you because I care. I'm not digging his young, virile, stocky body too much. Slurp. Slurp. April 28th. Operation Chris has now gone into effect. I am preparing for the future. I must have a smaller waist and bigger hips. Well, that was going to happen. Longer nails and prettier hair. I must grow spiritually. I must obtain Mr. Hillman. Obtain. I know. My thing with Hillman went on for 30 years. I actually did obtain him. Off and on for years, decades, and everything. And he was my first true love, really. I've had 5 real true loves. He was one of them. Yeah. Okay, what do you think the next band in LA? We're talking 1967.
Doors.
Yes. Woo. Not yet. I'm gonna read a little bit. Isn't Kitty doing a great job? Yay!
She married a bass player.
Yes, she did. She knows what's good. I had started seeing local bands. I saw a lot of really cool bands before. Springfield, Love, but this band, oh my God. A bunch of pretty ordinary guys came on stage and proceeded to go into a pretty ordinary number when a guy in black leather slithered on and filled the place so completely that everyone else might as well have been in the La Brea tar pits. I sat bolt upright and gasped at the glorious sight. Someone new and local to drool and dribble over. It was a historical moment. He clutched the microphone like it was a crucial part of his body, and he moaned like he really meant it. He moved with the unnatural grace of someone out of control, grounded only by the fact that his feet happened to be on the floor. But sometimes they weren't. Sometimes he laid down. He was doing stuff that no one was doing. He would lay down and sing like curl up in a fetal position and sing, and you could be this close. You could be on the stage and be right there in his face. It was pretty great. On top of all this, he looked like a Greek god gone wrong, with masses of dark brown curls and a face that sweaty dreams are made of. And he sang with a strong baritone groan punctuated with snarls and sweetness and indecent desire. I blacked out.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end,
songs I could choose for this, but this song is in the story I'm going to read, so I thought that's why I would play The End. My girlfriend lived in a store right behind the Canyon store. The Canyons lived in an apartment behind the Canyon store in Laurel Canyon. And so I made her acquaintance really fast. I wanted to hang out there too. I was still at home with my folks, but I would spend the night there and all kinds of groovy things happened. But this is about a very, very groovy thing that happened. I'd been hanging around the Canyon house for a couple of weeks when I was wakened one day to the glorious sound of the doors seeping in under the window shade in the womb room where I was still sleeping at 2 in the afternoon. I knew they'd recorded an album, but it hadn't been released yet. Who had a copy? Who within 100 yards of my presence had a copy? Preparing myself for a blast of the perpetual sunlight, I emerged from my blankets to seek out the owner of the record. I was thrilled to realize that the music was coming from the green shack house to my left and down a few dozen precarious steps. In Laurel Canyon, that meant right next door. I threw on a little purple dress and started down the steps to make the acquaintance of the ultra-hip neighbor who had a pre-release copy of the Doors' first album. I decided to peek in a window first so I wouldn't catch this hip person in the middle of an act of intimacy brought on by the sensual moans of Jim Morrison. I tiptoed over the rickety porch, looked into the kitchen, and clapped my hand over my mouth to capture the scream that threatened to shatter the staggering moment. Jim Morrison in the flesh, wearing nothing but his black leather pants, was digging around in the fridge, humming along with The End. Mother, I want to... Oh my God! I pinched myself, picked again for the sheer joy of it, and scrambled back up the stairs to decide what to do next. He moves, he breathes, he lives next door. By the time Sandy came home from work, I was in a puddle on her kitchen floor and had reached the place where Carlos Castaneda only dreams about. In one of my semi-lucid moments, I told her about her infamous, soon-to-be famous neighbor, and she suggested I knock on his door and introduce myself like a good neighbor should. I should explain here that one of my favorite bands at this time was the Iron Butterfly.
Yeah.
And they were very dear friends of mine. And the bass player, Jerry, had a crush on me. And he worked at a hospital during the day as a janitor. One afternoon, he broke a bottle of a clear liquid, and as he was mopping it up, he got stoned out of his fucking mind. So he started smuggling it out of the hospital and selling it on the Sunset Strip for $10 a vial. But since he had a crush on me, he'd bring me entire quart jars. I hadn't even started smoking pot yet or anything, and I thought since this was clear liquid, it couldn't hurt me. It turned out later I learned that it was used for women's saddle block when they were pregnant to give birth. It was a very potent drug, and also to put large animals to sleep. I don't mean dead, but you know, putting them to sleep for surgery or whatever. When I came to my extremely sensual senses, I was in the middle of a perfect back bend on Jim Morrison's tatty oriental rug. My purple velvet mini dress completely over my head. His red-headed girlfriend glaring down at me. I expected Rod Serling to appear in the doorway to narrate this ultimate in uh-oh moment. I was literally in a back bend. I just learned how to do it, and I thought, who can I share this with? The Lizard King! I'm sorry. I threw my glasses. I was so excited. You see what happens to me? I go back to these moments. Thank you, Kitty. When I read about him, I relive it. I see it. I feel it. You know? Anyway, I looked up from this back bend to Pamela Corson looking over me saying, "Get the fuck out of my house." So I did. I scrambled up the stairs, and a few minutes later I heard, "Don't you dare go up there," and crashing and banging, and I don't know what was going on, but he showed up. And I was so high, tragically I don't remember a lot of what happened. But we made out a little bit, and he invited me to see him play the next night at the Hullabaloo Club, and to meet him there. And I was really very excited, very, very, very excited. Remember, there was no G word yet. The groupie word didn't exist. I was just a, in quotes, fan who, loved to be around these guys. Okay. I had recently learned about sound checks and knew to be at the club between 4 and 6 o'clock when the band checked the monitors and instruments for the evening's entertainment. I went around to the back and perched blatantly on the back steps to the backstage door, wearing a handmade black and white striped bell-bottom set, carrying my precious, pathetic muskrat jacket, and an orange juice jar full of Trimar. I could hear the rest of the band tuning up inside and desperately hoped that Jim would arrive, sans redhead, scoop me up, take me backstage, and kiss my lips off, and that's exactly what happened. I had a couple of hankies in my homemade matching black and white bag, and during our makeout session, we indulged wildly in the mind-damaging drugs. I had never kissed anyone while high before, and it was a revelation. I melted in his mouth like honey, my whole body became sticky liquid, and his fingers on my face pushed holes through my cheeks like they were on fire, and left gaping holes where more honey gushed out. It was so high. But he was, you look up and see Jim Morrison's face. It's pretty cool. I sat very still in the gooey puddle while he went on stage to check his groans. Did anyone groan any better than Jim Morrison? Oh my God. And when he came back, I was coming to my senses. He took me by the hand and we climbed a rickety ladder up to a dingy dark loft where a bunch of old lighting equipment was rusting away, and taking my muskrat jacket, he laid it out on the wooden planks like a damsel was in distress. What a face he had. One of God's greatest gifts to rock and roll was that guy's face. And there he was right above me, his lips parted and his eyes closed, going in and out of focus as I inhaled my hanky. We rolled around up there for a timeless time until a familiar sound crept into our senses. Jim recognized it before I did and was making his way down the ladder as I sat up and heard the first few bars of Light My Fire. Was the sound check still going on? I pulled my clothes on, following Jim, and as he reached the microphone, I looked down to see the place full of wriggling, squirming audience. I was on stage with the Doors. My mouth hanging wide open, dragging my tatty coat, my half bottle of Trimar, and my soppy hankies too shocked to move. A kind roadie put his arm around me and escorted me to the wings, where I waited for Jim to collect me after the show, which to my delight, he did. So we drove around, he drove me, we went to Tiny Nailers. Back then it was, the girls were on ice skates, no, it was roller skates. And we'd bring food up to your window in the car, and so it was such a great night with Jim. He was really a one-woman man, so it didn't happen very often. But he took me up in the hills and threw the bottle of Trimar away. And I later wrote in my diary, Jim said this will hurt our heads, so he threw it away. And I thought, well, he must know what he's talking about. He's Jim Morrison. So of course I did go back to look for it, but it was gone. I'm sure he went back and got it, but I never did it again. And I thank him for that, because I know it was killing my brain cells. When I forget something, I do blame Jerry from the Iron Butterfly. I followed his advice, and every time I heard him sing Light My Fire, I was certain he had changed the words to the time to hesitate is through, no time to wallow in the mire, Trimar, we can only lose. And our love become a funeral pyre. Yeah. Jim was really a trip. He was an LA fixture. People think of Jim now as this, he was an incredibly beautiful, brilliant musician. Everything you think about Jim is true. But he then became a local drunk and got heavy set, bearded, and pushed people out of the way, and people would avoid him. I saw him one night trying to sleep in the gutter in front of the whiskey. So yeah, he got pretty sad. But right before he went to France, I decided to become an actress, and I was walking away from a really bad interview, feeling terrible. And he pulled up in front of me in a convertible and said, "I'm going to Paris. I'm finally going to write my poetry book." And he looked good. He seemed really happy. And of course, we all know what happened. So sad. Sorry to bring sad things into this, but these sad things did happen. But now I'm going to read you a happy thing. I went to a lot of love-ins in these days. Love-ins were a real thing. Anyone here been to a love-in? How old are you?
79.
Wow, he's been to a love-in. They were very short-lived, right?
Elysian Park.
Wow, I was there. I met you, I bet.
Yeah.
I never missed a love-in. They were, people can't fathom what it was really like. We thought we were going to change the world. It was all about revolution, revelations, renaissance. I mean, we thought we were going to make a difference in the world. And the love-ins had a lot to do with it.
We need more of that now.
I know, we do. Absolutely. Totally. Feel free to chime in. I really want you guys, let's make this interactive. Okay?
What is a love-in?
A love-in is where a lot of people gather in their finery. Usually I wore a tablecloth with my nipples sticking out. But, no, it's true. I was always half naked. And it was very nymph-like. You know, I did it just because I felt like it. But a lot of girls didn't, just me. And the bands played for free. You could see the Doors, the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, all these bands never, it was a very unbelievable thing to imagine. Actually, I'm about to read about Jimi Hendrix right now. And I was seeing Noel Redding, bass player number 2. And he told me one night Jimmy turned down $300,000 to play because he said it was too much money. He didn't deserve that much money. Things very much changed, but that was kind of a love-in moment that Jimmy was having. Okay, I'm going to read about this. At one of the love-ins, this really cool guy named Alan Davio, I met him at love-in.
Should we try one?
Try what?
Love-in.
Right now?
Right now.
Some dance.
We're indoors.
It's a flashback.
Love-ins were outdoors.
Yeah.
Okay. But other than that, maybe afterwards.
You're in Los Angeles.
And they were in Los Angeles, yes, that's true. But I think they were all over.
Hey, go
Yeah,
with
San
it.
Francisco. I was actually at the first human be-in, so I was at the very
Oh, that's
first
amazing.
love-in, yeah.
Be in.
Yeah,
That's so
human
good.
be-in, that's what they called it first.
Did the Dead play?
I don't remember the Dead, I was never a fan of theirs, but Allen Ginsberg was
Oh,
reading
yeah.
his poetry.
Yeah.
And Timothy Leary was there, they were all in white, it was just magic. So I'm gonna read about this. This guy, Alan Davio, who later went on to be Spielberg's cinematographer, but he was just a kid, a photographer. And he had followed me around all these love-ins, taking pictures of me. And a lot of these ones that they're showing here, he took. The ones with the flowered dress and the flowers in my hair and stuff, he took those. But he called me one morning and said, "Would you like to be in a short film?" There were no videos yet. "With this band from England." Nah, what do you think I said? Of course. I was 17, I said yes. And I'm gonna read you about that. When I arrived wearing a teensy blue velvet item, I happen to have this here today. This is one of the only things I have left from my time as a hippie flower child. This is what I wore in the story I'm about to read. It's tiny, right? I sewed the little white flowers on, and I also bought that collar, was 100 years old back then. I'm not exaggerating. So that's what I wore this day. When I arrived wearing a teensy blue velvet item, there it was, I could hear Foxy Lady pouring out the windows of this huge circular hippie pad painted neon green and hot pink. 3 frizz heads were the center of attention, and as I entered, the frizz in the middle said, "What are you doing later?" I smiled and started shaking because Jimi Hendrix was a formidable looking gentleman. He had a big psychedelic glaring eyeball on his wacky jacket, and his hair kinked out blatantly in every direction. I could smell sex all over him, even his pockmarks sizzled. I was not ready for an encounter with this formidable man on fire, so I tossed my hair in a pretense of savoir-faire and went out to find Alan. He put me on a tall white pedestal, and I wiggled my ass for hours while Foxy Lady played repeatedly and the cameras rolled. Jimmy's rake-thin sidemen were right up my back alley, and I made sleepy eyes with the bass player Noel Redding, until the end of the day when he asked me to go back to the hotel with him. I thought Jimmy in his jacket would give me the evil eye, but he just laughed, knowing he was too much for the likes of little me. Longer, taller blondes loomed large in his legend. There I was in what I was about to become in my favorite position in the world, hanging onto the hand of an English rock star. We swam in the pool and kissed each other from head to toe. Noel was a country boy from Kent and a very good introduction to Englishness. He was freshly famous and very happy to be in America, where girls were ripe for the sticking. He approved of my virginity, but wanted to be the one to lead me down the porno paths to the glories beyond, and insisted that I save the moment of explosion for him. He took me to the Hollywood Bowl the next night, where I reveled in being by his side. I was with the band. Yeah. Noel and I stayed in touch through the rest of his short life. I have all of his letters. And he actually wasn't the first. I fell in love with someone else. I thought I was in love with another person. I did write a song about it. You'll hear that in a minute. But Noel was number two bass player, like I said. But he did show me a very interesting trick. I would do everything but go all the way because I wanted to save that for Mr. Right. I came from the 50s. That was just, my mom only slept with two people. It was a very different time. But he one night brought out a tube of toothpaste and proceeded to use it in a very interesting way. And it was pretty incredible. Have any of you experienced that? You have. It's a minty, fresh delight, right?
It is.
And I was a kid. To experience this stuff as a kid back then was pretty awesome. Okay, the next person I wanted to meet in Hollywood, Frank Zappa had moved in from New York, and he had moved into Laurel Canyon, and I was just desperate to meet him. Of course, I knew he hung out with John Van Vliet, Captain Beefheart. They grew up together in Lancaster, and it was just such a thrill to think that Frank Zappa was going to be local. And I had met a whole bunch of girls on the Strip, very like-minded, crazy girls, and we all dressed alike and loved the same stuff and started hanging out. We started dancing with local bands, Three Dog Night, Love, whoever would let us up on stage. And Miss Christine, it's a long story how we became Miss, but Tiny Tim called Miss Lucy Miss first, and then we all became Miss. So the GTOs were Miss so-and-so, Miss so-and-so, right? But this time we were in the Laurel Canyon Ballet Company. We called ourselves that. We danced with all kinds of bands. And Miss Christine got a job as Frank Zappa's nanny for his baby daughter Moon. And I eventually got to meet him and hang out up in the cabin. He lived in a log cabin built by Tom Mix. And a cowboy, has anyone heard of Tom Mix?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, good. He was a movie cowboy, and he built a real live log cabin in Laurel Canyon. He had his horse buried under the bowling alley. It was a strange time in Hollywood. It really was. It was awesome. Anyway, Frank lived there in this crazy place, and we went up to meet him because Miss Christine was the governess. I'm afraid I can't read everything. It's because it's going to get late, but I'll go to here. Okay. He loved us. He loved us crazy girls. And we told him, we were the Laurel Canyon Ballet Company. And when Frank probed our brains for interesting info, Christine busied herself tidying the enormous pad Moon crawled up to her and she slung the baby girl on her scrawny hip and kept tidying. This must have impressed Gail because she offered Christine a full-time live-in position taking care of Moon, complete with household tasks. This was a very enviable position for an 18-year-old whack job from San Pedro in 1968. She was also a speed freak, so she was always cleaning the house, which Gail really liked. This wonderful occurrence, of course, clinched our friendship with the Zappas, and we started spending a lot more time at the log cabin, our home sweet home away from home. One evening, we appeared at the cabin in full matching regalia, plastic baby bibs, oversized diapers with yellow duck safety pins, our hair all up in pigtails, sucking giant lollipops. Frank flipped and invited us to dance on stage with the mothers that night in Orange County, California's suburban land. I was about to enter show business and I had visions of sugar plums dancing in my head. We'd been calling ourselves the Laurel Canyon Ballet Company, but Frank suggested we change our professional name to Girls Together Only, or the GTOs. We adored the idea and expanded on it, deciding that the O could stand for anything we wanted it to. Overtly, outlandishly, openly, organically, outrageously.
Yeah.
That's what we settled on. The potential was obviously endless. So we became very involved with Frank, and he had a record label. He was just starting called Bizarre Straight. Any Zappa fans?
Yeah.
And he wanted to sign some people and put this nutty music out on his label. And he suggested that the GTOs write songs and he would do an album with us. This was really unheard of at the time. There was only one girl rock band that I knew about called Fanny. And they never really quite made it, sadly, but I saw them once at the Troubadour. And also Ginger and the Gingerbreads, or
Goldie.
Goldie and the Gingerbread. So there were a couple girl bands, but very few. So we were very, very excited to, write songs. We'd tell him these crazy stories about our lives, and he would just, when Frank thought something was funny, he would beat his knee like this. He would pick you up and crack your back like a chiropractor. It was unbelievable. He was such a great, great, great person to know at that time frame. And I'm going to read a little bit about Frank here. There's so much about him in here. So I am actually selling some of these books. If you haven't read it yet, I have a few out there. July 30th, 1968. Mr. Zappa was in the highest of moods. For the first time, he hugged me tight, tight, tight and swung me around in the air. I love Mr. Zappa to such an idolizing point. He really started me thinking. Inhibitions are the fear to live, love, and just reach out for life and take it in your arms. I find myself just accepting things instead of loving them. So can you imagine the bumpkins who walk through the world buying flower moo-moos and losing their children? I'm still not there yet, though. Like Mr. Zappa, Captain Beefheart, Paul McCartney, etc. God, I pray for the GTOs. Perhaps we can open a few minds. That was something I really thought we could do. Maybe we did. I hope so. We did eventually get into the studio, and we had made friends with many, many rock stars. The guy who said that we fuck all the rock stars, that was not necessarily true at all. We hung out with bands and took them shopping, sewed buttons on their clothes, watched soccer with the Brits. It was like, oh my God. The Jeff Beck group came to town, and Rod Stewart became a good friend of ours, and Jeff, and they played on our album. I'll get to that. But we took him shopping. I remember taking Rod to the very first vintage clothing store in Hollywood, and he bought a feather boa. So how many times have you seen Rod in a boa?
Yeah.
That's okay. Give me some credit. We also dressed the Alice Cooper Band, who also got signed at the same time that we did. In fact, Miss Christine was dating Alice, and he wanted to audition for Frank. So she said, come over tomorrow 8 o'clock, and he said he'll see you, and, you know, maybe he'll sign you. So they had just been here from Arizona, and they showed up at 8 a.m. at Frank Zappa's house. He was not happy. He was very much a night person, but he got up and had his 18,000 cups of espresso and watched them and signed them. So the first two Alice Cooper albums are on the Zappa's label. Bizarre Straight. Yeah, I think so.
I love those albums.
Yeah, me too. Okay. We put a lot of work. Frank told us to write these songs, so we did. They went away on the road, the mothers did, and we wrote the songs, 14 of them, in the bowling alley where the horse was buried. We put a lot of work into the big day when Mr. Zappa sat in front of us, an audience of one, and after our stirring performance, he gave us a standing ovation. So we were ready to record. I'll get to that in a minute, but I've got to first talk about my very favorite band of all time. Some of you know who it is. Do any of you know who my very favorite band of all time is?
Burrito Brothers?
Yes, the Burrito Brothers. The Flying Burrito Brothers. Have any of you heard them? They were and of course Hillman, it was Hillman's band, so I was still crazy for him. So I would follow him anywhere. And I followed him to the Flying Burrito Brothers. And Graham had just come to town from Waycross, Georgia. That song you heard, Sweet Georgia Pines, I wrote for him. And the first time we saw him, Mercy and I saw him together at the premiere of The Yellow Submarine. And the GTOs had, Victor sold Sparky, one of the GTOs, his old Hudson Hornet. And we painted it yellow and made porthole looking things on it. And we got on the news that night. We went to the premiere and we were on the news. But that same night, Mercy and I saw this guy from across the room. He had on a red nudie jacket. Anyone know anything about nudie? Western rodeo tailor guy who did, you know, George Jones and everybody. He had on a red nudie jacket with yellow submarines on it. Wow. And Mercy and I said, who the fuck is that guy? So of course we made his acquaintance, and he had just arrived, and he was already in touch with Hillman, and they were going to leave the Byrds, which they did. I did see him play one night with the Byrds, and then they absconded and created the Flying Burrito Brothers, which was the first, he called it Cosmic American Music, Graham. And it was really the precursor to the Eagles and anybody, you know, yeah, all that stuff. So also, you know, we started hanging out with him. I was seeing Hillman off and on, even though he was the strong, silent type. He hardly ever said anything. And like I read earlier, I thought it was because he was just so deep. It was so deep, deep, deep. But he was really just kind of, I'm not going to say it, because I will always love him. I will always love him. I wrote many songs and poems for him as well. Okay. I'm trying to find where I want to read about Graham. There's so much. Okay. Graham invited Mercy and I to come sing on the chorus of Hippie Boy. You guys familiar with that song? Yeah. We sang on the chorus of that. The final song on the Burritos' first album, Gilded Palace of Sin, captured on vinyl with Chris Hillman, the glory of it all. And he also invited us to the session, Mercy and I, for Wild Horses, which, you know, they got the song before the Stones did it. Keith gave Graham that song. Keith and Graham became, I was at Altamont, you've got to read it. I was at Altamont with the Stones, and Keith and Graham were like turning into each other. Graham had decided, Graham was wearing coal eye makeup and 4 belts and 15 scarves around his neck. And Keith had on a cowboy hat and a nudie shirt and stuff like that. It was really strange to watch that transformation. But they invited us, Mercy and I, to come to the Wild Horses session. They were so thrilled that Mick and Keith had given them that song. So we were the only two people there besides Leon Russell, who was playing the piano. And also, Graham came to the GTO's session one night. And I was so obsessed with the burritos. I think I was more obsessed with this band. It was very Beatle-like. That's what it was like. It was that intense. One burrito night, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror at the whiskey, decked out in total cowgirl fringe, looking just like Annie fucking Oakley. And I knew I might as well be living in Mike Clark's drum kit. He was the Burritos drummer, formerly of the Byrds. And I made Chris a shirt, the way I thought, how am I going to show these people how much I love them? Besides the obvious, I was very, very good at oral. So I hope you're all good at oral. It's a very important thing to be good at.
Right.
But but I wanted to show my appreciation, so I made Chris a shirt. And I hand embroidered it and put so much love into this. I actually bled into it, kind of witchy, and the witchy voodoo things. I kind of bled into the embroidery, and I gave it to him, and he loved it. And he tried it on, it fit great. I made it from scratch, hand beaded, hand embroidered. 2 days later, I was at the whiskey, and Mike Clark walked in wearing the shirt. And I said, wait a minute, why are you wearing Chris's shirt that I just made him? And I'm not saying all drummers are stupid, I'm not. But he was pretty thick. Mike Clark was really thick, and he said, oh, I lost it. You lost it to me in a poker game last night. Now, he could have said anything with that, right? But Chris Hillman lost a fucking shirt in a poker game. And I was very upset about it. Devastated, heartbroken. But Graham and I were very close friends too. And I decided I should make him a shirt. And one night, he came to the GTO session. He asked Mr. Zappa, he said, he brought Chris, I think, one night too. But anyway, they wanted to play on the album, and Frank said no. He said, no thanks. So that was very devastating to me and Mercy. But he took us into a room, Graham took us into a little room with a piano, and I'm going to read that tiny piece about this. Sometimes it makes me cry. I hope it doesn't. June 26th, 1968. And Graham showed up, bombed out of his mind. He looked around for a piano, and I followed. I could sing for you all night, Miss Pamela, he said. And that's what he did. 3 hours of beauty, pure, shining love and brilliance. I'm so inspired and awestruck once again, full of Graham to the brim. I'm content just knowing he's alive. That didn't last long, did it? He never even made the 27 club. He was 26 when he died. Never has anything I've done been so appreciated. Graham loved his shirts so much. He said, she doesn't do this for money. There's so much love in this shirt, I can feel it. This shirt will never be entered in any poker game. I know, so wonderful. Graham. Shall we show it?
I'm your toy. I'm your old boy. But I don't want no one but you to love me. No, I wouldn't mind. You know I'm not that kind of guy.
Thank you, Kitty. Yeah, I made the shirt too. Yeah. I was 19. I was 19 when I made that for Graham. And about 15 years ago, his ex-wife Gretchen and I were going to be in a really dumb TV show called Rock Wives. I was married to Michael maybe 25 years ago. Anyway, she brought that for me. And I hadn't seen it since I saw it on Graham, right? So when she pulled that out and said, I thought you'd want to have this, I just started bawling. I could not believe I was gonna have it. And she told me he treasured it and he kept it in a plastic case and everything. It's just, oh, Lord. Okay, let's get on to another band. I was visiting Cynthia Plastercaster for New Year's Eve in Chicago. We met when Frank Zappa introduced us and became very fast friends for the rest of her life. She passed on 4 years ago. I miss her so much. And she had a poster on her wall of these four beautiful boys, incredibly beautiful. I said, who are those guys? She said, oh, they're dangerous. You don't want to know Led Zeppelin. Don't even go near them. Don't go near them. And coming from Cynthia, who made plaster penises of rock stars' dicks, I thought she probably knows what she's talking about. So when they came to town, I was going to avoid them. I swore to myself I was going to avoid them. When Led Zeppelin was due to hit town, the groupie section went into the highest gear possible. You could hear garter belts sliding up young thighs all over Hollis. Led Zeppelin was a formidable bunch, disguised in velvets and satins, epitomizing the glorious English pop star to perfection. Underneath the flowing curls and ruffles lurked slippery, threatening thrill bumps. The two sides of me were fighting it out. The sinning side I hoped to squelch in Kentucky was about to score a major knockout. I had gone to Kentucky to learn to play the fiddle because the burrito said I could be the flying burrito sister if I learned, but it was stolen on the way. The story is in this book. It's very sad. So what happened was, Michelle Overman, my dear friend, was seeing Robert Plant even though he was married. And she said, Jimmy Page really has a crush on you. He wants to meet you. And I knew that because one of the BTOs, they were the counterpart of the GTOs, had gotten a postcard from someone in England that said, and the bottom line was, Jimmy Page wants Miss Pamela. And it was very titillating, but Cynthia said no, so I was not going to do that. But Michelle said, come on, just come to a show. Just see, once you see him, you might change your mind. So she and I went to Santa Barbara to see the band play. And of course, that was all she wrote. Okay, Led Zeppelin in 1969 was an event unparalleled in musical history. They played longer and harder than any group ever had, totally changing the concept of rock concerts. They flailed around like dervishes, making so much sound that the air was heavy with metal. 2 hours after the lights went out, as the band sauntered off stage, the audience was a delirious, raving, parched mass, crawling through the rock and roll desert, thirsting for an encore. 20 minutes later, Mighty Zeppelin returned to satiate their famished followers. The long ride from Santa Barbara was one of those dream experiences that leave you glowing in the dark. From the moment Jimmy slid his small velvet-clad ass across the seat of the limo, right next to mine, until the door was thrown open in front of The Experience, a really weird club, we cooed and giggled like doves in heat. He told me he'd gotten my number the last time he was in town, but was too nervous to use it until the last day, and he called and called, but the line was constantly busy. He said he wanted to spend time with me more than anything in the world. Tell me more. I kissed and slobbered all over the inside crease of his slim white arm until he rolled his head back against the plush seat, gasping, "Oh, Pamela, yes, yes, yes." That was something I learned that night. And I'm going to give you this incredible tip. If you want to really get someone aroused, kiss their inside of their arm right here. Okay? Lick it. Lick it real good. Kiss it, slobber. It works. Have any of you ever done that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good tip. It worked on Jimmy Page. So I started seeing him. I became his girlfriend. You know, one night he said, "Oh, I'm thinking of marrying you." Oh, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I was really one of his actual girlfriends for a while there. Took me on the road to New York, to San Francisco, to Dallas. It was pretty amazing to be. That's when I became a super groupie. Shall we play a little snippet? Yes.
Yes.
You need cooling, baby, I'm not fooling. I'm gonna send you back to schooling. Way down inside, honey, you need it. I'm gonna give you my love. I'm gonna give you my love.
It's hard to sing on Robert Plant, or I would have sung along with that. That song, oh my God.
Best.
Think of hearing that for the first time, you know, when you're 20 and sleeping with that person. It's pretty darned amazing. One of the other places he took me to was Vegas, Las Vegas, and to see Elvis play. So you can imagine what I was going through. I was sitting there in the front row, in between Jimmy and Robert, seeing Elvis. So it was a very special moment. And then what happened afterwards was even more crazy. So I'm going to read a little bit about that. We stayed in this elegant suite with a king-size bed up on a platform and sat right in the front row to see the king reclaim his throne. He was wearing black leather and looked like 10 Greek gods as he tore through Love Me Tender, Don't Be Cruel, and Jailhouse Rock. He was sweating, he was in the flesh, he was alive, inhaling and exhaling. And there I was in Las Vegas breathing the same air as Elvis Presley, sitting between Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, and completely and entirely beside myself. Some sideburn grease monkey, I feel very bad about that. It was Red West, came up, shouldn't have called him a sideburn grease monkey, I'm sorry. Appeared after the show asking Jimmy if he would like to meet Elvis. He looked up and said, "Oh, no thank you." And I never quite got over it. Robert and I really looked at each other like, what the fuck? But in the early days, Jimmy, ran that show. What he said went. So Robert couldn't have said, "Oh, but I wanted to meet him." No, it wasn't happening. August 14th, gone. My lovely Jimmy, how amazing it all was. Is so full, every second taken up. 2 weeks full of one never-ending moment with JP, and the grand finale last night. 1,000,000 fireworks going off all at once in my soul. Lime green sherbet gushing like geysers from holes in the earth. I was floating on top of peppermint clouds, his lips turning into another amazing fruit after every kiss. Soft screams floating from my lips, my entire being pouring onto his face, buried in my body. My whole self was opened up and everything sweet was entering my pores. Every piece of Jimmy, every piece of me, interlocking with raspberries, oranges, pistachio ice cream, cherries, grapes, and tons of lime green sherbet. I had an orgasm every minute, and each one was a different flavor. Has that happened to anyone? I hope so. I had taken some very intense mescaline. And Jimmy watched over me, making sure I was having a good time. So that enhanced it, probably. At this time, too, at this very same time, Mick Jagger was in town with the Stones. A lot of bands would come stay in LA and not leave. They would like go to wherever they were going, San Antonio, and come back to LA because they loved being there. So the Stones were there for several weeks, and I was seeing the Burritos play one night, and this tiny little club in Topanga Canyon, and all of a sudden it felt like the roof was lifting off. The burritos were in the middle of the set, and all of the Stones walked in to this tiny little dump. And we're talking 1969, unbelievably beautiful men, right?